Right, start again. So, Ahara Puja, the puja of food. This is, I think, page 5 of our Samatha chanting book. I skipped my copy of the actual chanting book as well as the annotated bit. 1 second. Yeah. Welcome, Mariam. Yeah.
Hi, James. I'm expecting a phone call at some time in the next half hour, so I'll have to bob out
Okay,
and
not to
then
worry, not to
and
worry at all,
then
Mariam.
back in.
Right. Ahara. Those of you who know Thai will know that it's the same word that with the Thai phonetics becomes ahan, ahara, ahar, ahan, which is the Thai word for food. Now, some of you may have noticed, and it's not a coincidence, we have the word ahara and vihara. And they both actually come from the same root, hri, meaning to take. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to share screen and um, bring up this page. But bear with me while I do it. We've gone. So I lost it. Here we are. I'm just going to share screen now. Okay, is it shared now with the text? Good. I will also just share iPad. Okay, is iPad shared now? Okay, right. I may have mentioned this quite some time ago, but the meaning of vihara. Have I explained the meaning of vihara to this group? Vihara, we all know. Well, what is a vihara? Well, it's a monastery, right? So we're now going to look at the words. Oops, ahara and vihara. It's from the root hri, meaning to take. And it makes a verbal noun hara, taking. Now, we know that the prefix vi is the separative prefix. It's directly cognate. It's originally from the word meaning two, splitting in twain, and it's the same origin as the prefix, the Latin prefixes di and dis, meaning away or or negating something. So vihara, would mean taking away, which is exactly what the original meaning was. So the vihara is where it's your own private residence, your own private place of abode. It's where you actually take yourself away out of the public arena, out of the street, out of the busy market. You take yourself away into your private place where you remove yourself, where you seclude yourself. And that's the original meaning of the word vihara. Ahara with this prefix the dynamic prefix, either of dynamic movement or towards. The ahara, which is commonly translated as food, It actually means that which you bring towards or take into yourself. So the vihara, monastery, where you take yourself away, seclude yourself. The ahara, what you bring into yourself, is what you eat. So the ahara puja is the offering of food, and the chant goes. Is it on page 5? Yeah, it's at the bottom of page 5 in our printed text of the Samatha Chanting book, but we'll follow the annotated text that I've done here. So adhivasetunu bhante bhojanam upanamitam anukampang upadaya pratiganhatumutama. So bhante, the honorific form that we all know. Adhivasetunu bhojanam upanamitam. Adhivasati, also adhivaseti, they both effectively have the same meaning. Vas means to dwell or to stay somewhere. Um, Adhivasati is, so to speak, staying upon it, dwelling with it, and it's come to mean acceptance. And it can either mean acceptance of something that you like, but also, just as we can say in English, acceptance of something that you don't like. Um, the adhivasati, living upon, literal staying upon, dwelling upon, this is reflected in our English expression, live with something. I can live with it, meaning I don't quite like it, but I can live with it. That's for something negative, but for something positive, it means you positively accept it. The same word, adivasati, is used, interestingly enough, in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, that when the Buddha died, many of his followers, there are some terrible descriptions of what was happening to them. Some were so grief-stricken that they were even unable to stand up. The Pali has it even as if their feet had been cut off; they were unable to stand. But those who, adhivasanti, those who were able to cope with it, to live with it, and remain calm, the same adhivasati that is you used here, were those who had really grasped and taken into themselves the doctrine of anicca. And that point is actually quite strongly made in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, that those who had really grasped anicca, they were the ones who were able to adhivasati with upekka, the death of the Buddha. So that's accepting something unpleasant, but equally, as I say, you can accept something that's meant is or isn't intended to be pleasant. So adhivasetano bhante bhojanam upanamitam. So me bhante adhivasetu, that's the imperative, third person imperative, may he accept this bhojanam, this food, upanamitam, that is offered. From the root, we all know the root nam, meaning to bow or to bend. Originally, it's just bending, namati, and it makes the verbal noun in Sanskrit namas, from which we get the Hindu greeting namaste, namas to thee, and in Pali it becomes namo, as in namo tassa, and so on. It literally means a bowing or a bending. In its causative form, the ordinary simple form, namati, namami, Buddhang namami, Sangham namami. In its causative form, nameti, causes to bend. It can also mean cause to go up, cause, putting forward, and specifically um, upanameti, to put forward, to cause to go upwards. And that's the meaning of upanamitam here. In other words, you're offering it, and by the Buddha's acceptance of it, it goes up. So you're making it as a human offering, but then it's taken up to that level, taken up a level by the, that's why I'm saying adhivasetu. May he take this food that is offered up. Um, in fact, we use I don't know whether it's still used, but certainly when I was brought up as a young Roman Catholic, we were constantly told to offer things up. Whenever we had a complaint, often a very legitimate complaint, when I was 5 and 6, my mother would say, offer it up for the holy souls. In other words, bear it with patience, offer it as a sacrifice for the alleviation of the sufferings of those in purgatory. So it's the kind of offering up, upanameti. Anukampang upadaya pratiganhatu muttama. Upadaya means literally having um, received or taken up. It's also the same word as upadana, which means fuel and therefore by extension clinging. It's that which you take up to yourself. The upadana in the sense of clinging. It literally just means taking up. So upadaya, and now upadaya, having taken up. This is now used almost just adverbially. So anukampam upadaya, literally having taken up compassion, is just like an adverbial phrase meaning with compassion, compassionately. So the upadaya here is almost deprived of its verbal form, and it just means with compassion. Having taken compassion, may he accept it. The word compassion here, anukampa, and of course it's in the accusative because of the following verb, upadaya. Anukampa, the root kamp means to shake or tremble. And if you are unshakable, you are akampa. The anukampa means trembling, but trembling in response to or along with another. So the anukampa, you get some other being who is shaking or trembling with grief or fear, and your anukampa, you're, as it were, shaking along with that other person, as if you're picking up the vibration of that other person and trembling or being fearful or sorrowful in sympathy with that other person. So the anukampa is a kind of sympathetic vibrating, sympathetic shaking with sorrow or fear, and therefore it has this meaning of compassion, which in fact the anukampa quite strongly mirrors the Latin sense of compassion, passion, suffering, compassion, suffering with somebody, feeling the same suffering that they do. So anukampam upadaya, compassionately with anukampa, patiganhatu muttama. May the supreme one, the uttama, the highest one, patiganhatu, may he accept. The patiganhatu, oops, here we are. So ganhati means just takes. If you put the verbal prefix pati in front of it, this verbal prefix pati, which I think is probably about the most subtle of the prefixes in the whole of the language, it often has the meaning of in response to something like counter. May he counter take. So ganhati is just takes. Pati ganhati, it means something like counter takes, therefore accepts. But you can only accept something in response to an offer. You can't accept something that has not been offered. So you countertake it, mean you accept it, accept in response to it being offered. And I think you should all know the difference between patiganhati and patiganhatu. Is there anybody who does not have a totally well-established, I mean, deeply Yoniso, deeply into the wombs of your psyche, of the difference between a verb ending in ti and a verb ending in tu? Ah, let me now place Yoniso Manasikarota. Take it well into your minds. Okay. Um, the third person singular of the vast majority of verbs ends in ti, ati, ati. It ends in a ti. And the third person plural of, can't think of any verbs that don't follow this rule, end in anti or just nti, nti. Bhavanti, bhavati it is, bhavanti they are. Very simple rule, change that final e to an u and you change it into an imperative form. May it be so. So bhavati it is, bhavatu may there be. And you've all chanted it dozens of times, maybe thousands of times. Bhavatu sabbamangalam, rakantu sabbadevata. If you said bhavati sabbamangalam, that would mean all blessings. There is all blessing is already there. But by changing it to bhavatu, that means may there be. You're expressing a wish that it should be. Rakantu sabbadevata. All the gods are protecting us, as a statement would be rakanti sabbadevata or sabbadevata rakanti. If you change the e to the u, rakantu sabbadevata, you're making that now you're changing it from it being a statement of fact to an expression of wish. It's like rakantu sabbadevata. May the gods, may all the gods protect. So here, if you're saying that somebody is accepting something, you'd say adhivaseti. But here we've got adhivasetu, may bhante accept. And patiganhatu, may he receive. And suttite hotu sabbada, may well-being hotute be, may it be unto you. We see this a very great deal in our various chants, which are in those parts of them where we're expressing a wish. I don't know how many of you entered into a state of puzzlement at this final For those of you who want to explore it further, I've explained the puzzlement here. Uttama, if you look at this Uttama here, it seems to be a vocative form. but you would normally not have a vocative form with a third person verb. May the highest one receive would be Patiganhatu Uttamo. If it's vocative, O highest one, please receive, then you would expect here an imperative, Patiganhahi, not a third person Patiganhatu. There is a similar, it was in something's gone wrong somewhere along the text. Maybe it's one of these errors that has just become embedded in the text. Nobody quite wants to change it. Um, because Bhagavad, I'm going back now to the Panya Puja that we did a couple of weeks ago. Bhagavad, that's that's the May the Blessed One Bhagava Pratiganhatu, that you're explaining, sorry, you're addressing the Bhagava in the third person. May the Bhagava accept. But where Uttamam, this is now in the accusative. It's the accusative, either nominative or, sorry, it's either a masculine accusative or a neuter nominative or accusative. Either way, it doesn't quite make sense. My explanation here is that we just have to get used to these little anomalies and puzzles. As my Boonman used to say, get used to with it, famously used to say. It's a bit inexplicable, and it could be just an error that has got stuck there. You do find in several of our chants the things that you can't quite explain. Um, Even in our chant, Imasamin Raja Semana, there are bits that are just inexplicable as normal Pali. Um, we just have to accept them. It doesn't affect the meaning. I would have much preferred. I've been quite happy if I'd seen Uttamo there. It would have been problem free, and that would have been accepted. May the highest one nominative accept Pratiganhatu Uttamo. That would have been normal. You occasionally see, and I've put it between hyphens here, an inserted M. Um, it has no grammatical significance. It's purely euphonic. The words on their own would be Pratiganhatu and Uttama or Uttamo. For example, there's the expression um, a neither painful nor pleasant feeling. The word is adukhamasuka vedana, adukhamasuka. In fact, the M after adukham is exactly the same as an inserted M. It's done to avoid the hiatus adukha asuka, in order to avoid the hiatus of those two vowels, and M is inserted. That's contrary to the rules of Sanskrit phonetics, but Pali will regularly do it. So it's just a phonetic insertion with no grammatical significance. Jeremy, please come in. You're still muted, Jeremy. Unmute.
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah, there we are.
yeah. So in the vocative, the masculine, it can either be a long A, so Bhagava, or a short A, as in Uttama. Is that right?
A little bit more complex than that, because Bhagava belongs to a different declension. We've got the stem form Bhagavant or Bhagavat, and we in Sanskrit is Bhagavan with a final N, In Pali, it's the same, but with that final N dropped. So the nominative and the vocative are the same, just bhagava. Here, it's an ordinary, the most common form of adjective and noun, the one that where the stem ends in a short ah. So that it's not the same declension as bhagava. If you're saying oh Buddha, just say Buddha, hey Buddha, with a short ah, which is the same as here. Has this resolved the difficulty or made it worse, Jeremy?
No, I think it's resolved it.
Okay, right. They belong to different declensions and have different endings. So, for example, we talk about where we're talking the third person talking about the blessed one, the Bhagava. Remember that's with the long R in the nominative form, simply because of the declension that it belongs to, and the word Bhagavo doesn't exist. Whereas this is Uttama, nominative Uttamo, which is the Akaranta Shabda. That's a word that ends in a short A. And it's for example, Uttama, stem form, nominative Uttamo, accusative Uttamang, Uttamam. Bhagava, you know the accusative of Bhagava, don't you? We all know this. Buddhang Bhagavantam Abhivademi is the Bhagavantam, that is the accusative form. And you know the genitive of it, don't you, Jeremy? We all do.
Bhagawasa.
Uh-uh. Uh-oh. Supatipanno Bhagavato Savakasangho. If it were a short a stem, Bhagava, which does not exist, then we'd have nominative Bhagavo, accusative Bhagavang, but it's not Bhagavang, it's Bhagavantam. We'd have genitive Bhagavasa, which does not exist, it's Bhagavato. And you know I'm tormenting you now, Jeremy. It's like one lawyer to another. You know the instrumental of it, don't you? Okay, continue this chant. Swakato.
Sawaka Sango.
Oh, no, that's Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sango. Well practicing is the Savaka Sango, the Sangha of disciples, Bhagavato of the Blessed One. The instrumental is Bhagavata, as in Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo. Well proclaimed by the Blessed One is the Dhamma.
And not but otherwise in a masculine noun, the instrumental would be ena in the
It would
singular.
be, but subject to one rather important proviso that applies to the nouns where the stem ends in a short ah.
Right, yes.
Yeah. If it ends in something else, if it's a consonantal stem where the stem ends in a consonant rather than a vowel, rather than ena, it ends in a. That is why stem Bhagavanto Bhagavat, instrumental Bhagavata. By the Buddha, the Blessed One, Buddhena Bhagavata. Of the Buddha, the Blessed One, Buddhassa Bhagavato. And in the accusative, the Buddha, the Blessed One, Buddhang Bhagavantang. I think we might need to do a bit more hard digging on some of these declensions. Oh, just got a low battery signal. Plug in.
When do we get to this in G and K?
I can't remember offhand, actually. And Simon, do I see Simon reaching round for his copy? Yes. However, what I have done, and I'll give you a link to it when I send out the group email after this. I have done a separate video quite some time ago, which I can't remember whether I have referred this group to it. Possible, evidently not. But I've done a video precisely on the. In fact, I've done two separate teaching videos, not related to a particular grammar, but on the consonantal declension. I will send a link to them, and when we next time we meet, I will see all of your faces fully enlightened, at least with regard to the consonantal declension. But no, once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy. And for example, let me just give you an example here. Sorry, here we are. This instrumental declension. Sorry, this consonantal declension, instrumental ending. Sorry, I've lost the connection again. Desktop PC, nearly with you. Here we are. We have the expression that we chant Sirasa Namami. You know that one? Those of you within summer, Sirasa Namami. Namami, I bow, I revere. Sirasa, literally, with the head. It's in its stem form, it's in fact a consonantal stem, siras. But I don't think it's used in that form, in the nominative form, but we certainly have it in the instrumental form. Sirasa, I'll be right with you, Simon. So Sirasa Namami, I revere with the head. That means I revere by placing my forehead right down to the ground. You know, the 5-point bow, both hands, both elbows, and forehead. So that's the meaning of Sirasa Namami. I actually revere by placing my head down on the ground. And Manasa, with the mind, root, stem form rather, Manasa. Sorry, stem form Manas often becomes Mano in Pali, but instrumental Manasa, with a mind. Manasa che paduttena bhasativa karotiva, if he speaks or acts with a corrupted mind. Simon, please come in.
Yeah, just answering Sarah's question, but we get on to nouns and adjectives in Vant and Mant on lesson 5, page 69.
Oh, of G and K.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So rather than wait for that, what I will do anyway, in the group email that I send out after this, I will send links to the teaching videos that I've done, covering both Sanskrit and Pali on the consonantal declension. So before we move on then, well, we can just have there's a couple of people chanting it, but any comments or queries on this first part of the chant? So who's going to volunteer? Yes,
sorry.
please, Marianne, come.
Could you in the offering of the drink,
Okay.
in the last Uttamo, is that what we were talking about it's erroneous where it ends is as Utama
Um,
as
Bhagavan,
opposed to
okay.
Utamon.
I think I'm okay. I mean, I've got to be pretty hesitant, and I am pretty hesitant before saying, well, I don't quite get it, therefore it's got to be a mistake. Because
Yeah.
the truth of the matter be, I don't quite get it because I don't know enough myself. But this one seems to be so evidently an error.
Yeah.
I think it is an error that has crept in. Now, it's the kind of error that I'm given some comfort by the fact that you very rarely see that kind of inexplicable case ending in the proper canonical early suttas. You just don't see it. That's done in regular Pali, and complex though it may be, it's very, very rare in the early suttas that you see something that just doesn't make grammatical sense. It's kind of regular, normal Pali. Where you do find, and not infrequently find, these grammatical anomalies are in the later chants that are not canonical, but have been composed maybe centuries and centuries later, typically in Thailand, um, where you get something of the Thai influence coming in, or it being written, or with vowels inserted or letters inserted that don't quite make sense, and they do it because they're Thais. So I have those greatest admiration for the Thais. I say nothing against them, but you do tend to find that in Pali chants, I'm trying to be as careful as I can here, could just be in Pali chants, you do find that the ones that originate in Thailand from a later period do occasionally have grammatical anomalies that you simply would not find. And this is, in fact, they're both anomalies here.
Oh, well, this is what I was going to say. I was, are they, which one is not the anomaly, if you see what I mean? Because considering that it's exactly the same form of chant and it's doing the same sort of thing except one's drink and one's food, you'd think they would have the same construction, wouldn't you?
Okay. I'll be right with you, Simon. Yes, you would, but the answer, I think they're both wrong.
Ah,
Yes. I
right.
think because if you, what you were going to say, Simon?
Yeah, I mean that they both could just about make sense in that the Uttamang could refer to the Paniyang. It's the
Mm,
ultimate water, which is a bit,
yeah,
and the other one would have to be in the vocative and refer to the Blessed One.
yeah.
But in either case, they make a really weird compound.
In either case, that it just sounds wrong. I think if I had my way, if I were asked to redraft this before it was published, I would in both cases change the uttama to uttamo as the nominative. If it were uttamo in the nominative, the whole thing now would become problem free because may the uttamo, may the highest one, patiganhatu, may he accept.
Okay.
So I think that they're both anomalous and explicable by being, as I said, composed centuries and centuries later in Thailand. I mean that very beautiful chant, Imasamin Raja Semana. In fact, several people have come up and said, can I give them an explanation of it? But and there's just this is Raja Semana. What's Semana meant to mean here? If you analyze it, it's very, very tricky. I was really beating my brains out over it. And I was quite relieved actually when Valerie Roebuck also just couldn't get it. And she kind of agreed with me that something had gone wrong in the Pali. And I did feel very relieved that I was backed in this by Valerie. Um, And also at the end of that chant, Rakantu, Surakantu. Now, Rakantu, we'll know, may they protect, which we have in our blessing chant, Rakantu Sabadevata. Rakantu, may they protect. Now, Surakantu, may they fully protect, may they protect well. Pali, proper Pali, will have the prefix su in front of a word to mean good, generally good or nice, but never in front of a finite verb. So surakantu just is bad Pali, basically, but there it is in this very popular chant. So yeah, we do just have to, adhivasema, we just have to accept the fact that you get a few anomalies, but some of them are so obvious. You can just say, well, that's just a Thai monk composing it, and just thinking it was all right to put it that way, when in fact it wasn't. And you could adopt a more liberal attitude and say, well, it's a developing language. Pali within Thailand has developed its own usages. Well, okay, so be it. But it's a departure, and it is a known and distinct departure from classical Pali, as the Pali of the suttas, which is or is very close to what the Buddha and his contemporaries actually spoke. So, shall we have a recitation of this? Shall I choose the first face in my gallery? Anne, you are the first face. You are the top left in my gallery.
Okay, I try. Adivase tu nobante bhojanam upanamitam anukampam upadaya patiganhatum uttama.
Okay, right. Save that. You went very quickly over the no and made it a very adivase tu no bhante. Remember, you've got to give it its full O length. Would you just like to?
Adivase tu no bante.
Exactly so, yeah. Also, the way you pronounce, how do you pronounce Bhojanam?
Bhojanam.
Okay,
But I see the dot below the M. So bhojanam.
Okay, right. Bhojanam upanamitam. This is
Bhojanam
this is a
upanamitam.
slightly tricky area. You will very often see, okay, where you get a word ending in the anuswara, this subdotted M, followed by a consonant, that's normal, that's how it's always done. What happens if it's followed by a vowel?
Vowel.
Ah, that's where it gets tricky. In Sanskrit, where you get the equivalent followed by a vowel, it just changes to an ordinary M and the vowel immediately follows. So, bhojanamupanamitam. In fact, these words will be identical in Sanskrit and Pali. Bhojanamupanamitam. Listen carefully, very slow. Bhojanamupanamitam. Now, and that's how it would be in Sanskrit. It would be wrong to have a subdotted M, the anuswara, with the following vowel. Can't be done in Sanskrit. In Pali, you can do either. And what happens is, if it's a subdotted M, that means you have to pronounce it as the full anuswara, which typically, because within Samatha we tend to follow the Thai pronunciation, would become as bhojanang upanamitam, bhojanang, with a long, heavy syllable, bhojanang upanamitam, which would be anomalous in Sanskrit, where, as I said, it would just be bhojanam upanamitam. And sometimes you get one form and other times another form. It's a bit unpredictable. It's quite useful for people who are composing poetry and have got to get the long and the short syllables, or the heavy and the light syllables, because if you have a short syllable, bhojanamupanamitam, but you want to make it long, just subdot the M, hey presto, and it's done. Bhojanam upanamitam. And you get the same phenomenon here. In Sanskrit, again, the words will be identical in Sanskrit. Anukampamupadaya. You see, anukampamupadaya in Sanskrit it would be, with a straight and ordinary M, and it could be anukampamupadaya in Pali, but here it's written with a subdotted M. Anukampang upadaya. You have to make it a heavy long syllable and pronounce it with that long.
Upadaya.
So it makes no difference grammatically. It's essentially, it comes down to a matter of style and poetic meter and the choice of the writer or composer as he's writing or composing. So whether at the end of a word there's an anuswara or the final M before a following word beginning with a vowel, whether it's an ordinary M or subdotted M, is purely stylistic, poetic, of no grammatical significance at all. The existence of the M, of course, is of grammatical significance. Here it makes the accusative, but whether it's subdotted or not, it can sometimes be one, sometimes the other. Okay, Jeremy, would you like to do us a little recitation of this?
Yep. Adivasetu no bante bojanam upanamitam anukampam upadaya patiganhatumum utama.
Okay, anukampang upadaya.
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 Right. Where we have a long R followed by a single consonant and another long R, because of the phonetics of English, we have a natural tendency to shorten it. Upadaya, which is what you did, but they're both long. Upadaya, and for the moment, putting my Samatha Pali police cap on. In the precepts, I still find a lot of people who ought to know better, who in the third precept, Kamesu Michachara, they're all long. A lot of people still chant Kamesu Michachara. That's not a matter of style. That is plain wrong. You'll never hear the monks chanting it. So Game Sumicha Chara. I'm continuing my campaign, not completely without success, to get this correctly pronounced across our Samatha Sangha. But you can tell why. It's just because it's the natural tendency of the phonetics of English speakers. Kame Sumicha Chara is much more normal to the English speaker than Kame Sumicha Chara, which feels a little bit unnatural to us, but it's correct in Pali. Another point I'll raise here is do we pronounce this final subdotted M as an M or a M? In northern India, at the time of the Buddha, almost certainly, and in current times, definitively known, it's pronounced as an ordinary M, not as a M. The only reason I have been persuaded, in certain circumstances, to pronounce it as a M was through having been roundly told off by Rachel Hall at a chanting weekend. And those of you who've been told off by Rachel Hall don't want it to happen twice, so you obey what she says. But she said, this isn't Sanskrit, James, this is Pali. Stop speaking Sanskrit. Okay, ma'am, sorry. So then if it was Sanskrit, and almost certainly in the time of the Buddha in Pali, it would have been pronounced as an M. This M sound is, I'm pretty sure I'm going to stand up and defend it, even though I'm not 100% sure I'm right. This is a Thai phenomenon, or a feature of the phonetics of Thai. The final M becomes the final M. But in India, no Indian would pronounce it like that. And when you hear the Brahmins chanting the Vedas, and the pronunciation of the Vedas is going to be very similar and bound to be very similar to what the pronunciation of Pali at that time. They were essentially variants of the same language in the mouths of the same speakers. And your Brahmin chanting the Vedas at the time of the Buddha, in his colloquial speech, he would have been speaking Pali or something so similar to Pali as to be virtually indistinguishable from it. Whereas if you were chanting the Vedas, he'd be chanting Vedic. And when you hear the Vedas being chanted, it's a final M, not an M. And we know how the Vedas are chanted now because it's all over the internet. I mean, and you can get Vedic chanting. So there we are. So before we move on, then, any further comments or queries? Okay, let us proceed. By the way, I think one other point, the uttama, this ut means up or out. It means both. And it is directly cognate with our English word out. And so we have uttara, the comparative form uttara in Sanskrit and same in Sanskrit and Pali, meaning more out, therefore superior, which is directly cognate with our two English words utter and outer. And equally, the superlative form uttama, the most out, is directly cognate with our English utmost, uttama utmost, are essentially the same word. And where you have the anuttara, the unouted, means there is nothing further beyond it. Therefore, it means supreme. Anuttara, uttara, outer, anuttara, without an outer. In other words, than which nothing has gone further. So anuttara, therefore, is sometimes translated as supreme, but it would be more accurate to say unsurpassed or something like that. No improvement can be made on it.
James, James, I do have a question.
Please, Anne. Yes, please.
Well, it's kind of a curious. I'm wondering if it was a style for the people around the Buddha when they are asking him to accept. They're asking him to accept with compassion.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was wondering, would that be like a kind of a stylistic request? Because he is the Buddha and he is always ever supremely compassionate. And I wondered if they were just pointing that out or pointing out their own humbleness.
Yeah, actually, that's an interesting one there. I mean, you could get people like Jeremy and me as lawyers, and you listen to people trying to say, "Oh, what do you mean by that? That's a pleonasm. Why did you add in these superfluous words?" But we wouldn't do that, would we, Jeremy? Because when you're chanting in a devotional context, you will often, you can put in extra words, which just an acknowledgement of the certain qualities that you're recognizing. So we've got to be a little bit of leeway for this devotional kind of context.
So it's an acknowledgement, like that he's superior. like because he's the highest one as well.
Indeed,
Gautama.
yeah,
So
yes, exactly.
okay. Thank
And
you.
also by expressing it in words, you are, in effect, acting as a reminder that that is an ideal to which we should be aspiring. One of these ideals, which being not yet enlightened, we occasionally fall short of. So we just give ourselves these reminders by stating the positive attribute of the Buddha, reminding ourselves in words that that is an ideal to aspire to.
Thank you.
So
Yeah, can I just say as well,
yes, please, Marianne.
like you were saying, Anne, that act of offering up and giving food, which not just the Buddha but all monks would take, it's quite an odd thing to do, because it's not like just offering food to a guest, and you would kind of want to be giving them the best you could, but you wouldn't want to be overdoing it, if you see what I mean, because
Yeah.
the Buddha and the monks should just be eating food, not really for the sensual pleasure of it, but to just as fuel, if you see what I mean. It's an interesting position that you find yourself in, offering something, and you'd, because it's to a sort of a higher being, you'd almost want to be offering your best, but not everybody could. You just, that sounds rather a muddled thing, but I think it is quite an interesting position to find yourself in.
It's a very interesting position indeed. I'll be right back to you, Simon. That we know that when we are offering food to the monks, objectively, what are we doing? These people need a meal. We're offering them food. Equally, we know that they themselves are on a course whereby they will, they don't want to indulge in the senses. Now, do we have a little kind of conflict here? We want to give them the best, but equally, we don't want to, lure them and tempt them into kind of the worldly lust for delicious food. So it is a bit of a bit of a tricky one. In fact, like 2 or 3 months ago, when we were giving dana at our centre in Manchester, and it was Arya Dhammo well, many of you will know Arya Dhammo from the Sri Lankan vihara in Manchester. So the food was offered. It was quite a good spread, actually. That was one of those days when we had several of these grandmotherly types around, you see, who were organizing the food. So the food was duly offered in the ceremonial manner. And as we were leaving, a couple of us just turned back to look, and there was Arya Dhammo with a big grin on his face with a thumbs up, meaning jolly good spread, thanks, chap. So an acknowledgement that the dana was an extra specially nice dana. There's an interesting moral point that you have you have raised here, Marianne. So Simon, yes, you were going to make a point.
Yeah, just to agree with Marion, really, that it's a really profound thing to offer to the Buddha, and we've got this idea of patigamhatu, that he takes something which is given by us, but the Buddha, of all beings, doesn't need it. And in particular, passed into parinibbana. It's not as if, can I tempt you with this delicacy? It's purely compassion. You don't need to, but would you
Yeah.
accept it for the goodness which it gives to us? So that's kind of a very profound point in the verse.
It is actually, and yeah, and this actually raises the question of the meaning. Welcome, Krista. Welcome. This raises the meaning of the word punya. Punya, which is typically translated as merit. I think all of you may have heard me say this before. Merit is something that you have earned. We have the legal phrase quantum meruit. I mean, like a fair price. If the price isn't agreed or determined, then what you owe is quantum meruit, how much he has earned. So if you translate as merit, that is, it's almost like a commercial balance. You give something to make merit. You often hear about it in the Theravada kind of you're making merit by giving to the monks if you're enhancing the what's in your bank balance. But in fact, the root of the word is pu, which comes into Latin as purus, meaning pure. So it's an act of purification. So it's not just the bank balance merit, it's an act of purification by releasing your own attachment to something that you like and letting it go, offering it. So purification in that sense, which is why the translation of merit, it doesn't quite get it. Which is part of the reason we're here, you see, to analyze what the Pali really does say. So, Jeremy, what are you about to say?
Yes, I was just going to say that I think a large part of giving food, it's the merit that's earned
That's right.
thereby. And so
Yeah.
in Thai, it's tam bun. So tam is to do or to make, and then bun is merit.
Of course, which is the Thai version of punya in Pali.
Yes.
Yes.
But the
Yeah.
other interesting thing is that apparently a large amount of the food that's donated to monks is far more than they could ever eat or need. And so it actually is, it's not used. So there is I don't know if you come across it, there's a book called Prat Farang, which is about an Englishman, went to the Thai temple at Wimbledon and then he became a Thai monk.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great sort of insight into the realities of being a monk in Thailand. Particularly somebody who's not Thai.
Uh-huh.
So Prat is the sort of honorific word for a monk, and Farang is just foreigner or Westerner or whatever.
Yeah, farang is actually from the
it's French.
It's the same as the Franks and the French.
Yes.
And Frankfurt and so on, which in fact at one point in history was a generalized term used in the East for Europeans generally. They refer to us all as Franks, and the Thais still do. So that's why farang is literally a Frank, but refers to Europeans generally. Farang, I hadn't heard of that book. So what we'll do now, we've come to 4:04, so we'll just have our comfort break, and we shall resume at 4:15 if that's right with you. So
And stop recording.
Thank you, Sarah.
Pleasure.
Pause. Thank you, Sarah. So we're looking now at the chant that's at the top of page 6 of our printed chanting book. And in the file that I sent you, it's the page headed at Samatha Chanting Book, page 6. And here we are looking at the key word in this one is pamada. At the top of our Samatha Chanting Book, it's translated as acknowledgement of inattention, So inattention is just one of the various facets of the word pamada. Pamada is a doctrinally and practically central word in the Buddhist practice. Is the screen still shared and you see my iPad screen? Okay, thanks. So, oops. Uh-oh. So pamada. Oh, pen is giving me a problem. Pramada, Sanskrit pramada. Its negated form in Sanskrit is apramada, non-pramada.
I can't see your iPad, James.
Is there anyone else who can't see my iPad?
No, I can see it.
Hmm.
Oh, that's funny.
I can see it too.
I mean, I put it on shared screen, and I mean, can you see it, Anne? Can you see my iPad?
Yes, I can see it.
That's funny.
That's very weird, because once screen is shared, you all ought to be seeing the same thing.
Oh, well, never mind.
How very strange. And what I'll do, let me just unshare and share again. So I'm going to, and then it might so share. So, hang on, let me stop share. Okay, so now none of you should see it. Is that correct? You're not seeing the shared screen. Okay, now I'm going to go on to share again and see if this cures the problem.
Yes, I can see screen sharing. Thank you.
Wonderful. That is very strange that should have happened. So, pamada, Sanskrit pramada, and apramada, again, because we've got a consonant cluster in Sanskrit that reflects in the Pali when it's preceded by a short vowel. That's why Pali is appamada. So, pamada and appamada, pamada and non-pamada. It's an absolutely key word, and there is a respectable argument for saying that it's the most important single word that the Buddha ever uttered. And the reason I make bold to say that, I don't definitively say it is so, saying there's a bit lawyer-like about it. You can make a respectable, quite a strong, respectable argument for saying so, is that it was the very last words that the Buddha uttered before he died, as recorded in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, was Vayadhamma Sankhara Appamadena Sampadeta. So Vayadhamma Sankhara, Sankhara, all compounded things or conditioned things are Vayadhamma, of the nature to fall apart, to go away, to vanish. Appamadena Sampadeta. So the verb Sampadeta would mean something like strive on, bring it about, make it happen, literally make it happen, but in rough English equivalent would be strive on. How? Appamadena. So it was his second last word, the negated form, his second last word. Basically, how to live our lives, this final instruction, in this one word, appamadena, how to live our lives. It would have been his very last word, save for the fact that even on his deathbed, he was still complying with the rules of Pali syntax and put the verb last. So if he'd been following an English word order, he would have said sampadeta appamadena, strive on with appamada. As it was his second last word. And it's basically the opposite of everything that we include within the meaning of mindfulness. You know, careful, moral, mindful behavior. All of that is, and to neglect that is pamada, and the non-neglect of it is the appamada. So it's commonly translated as something like heedlessness, which is which is a good enough translation, provided we remember that, like so many of these translations, it captures part of the picture, but not the whole picture. The root of the word is mad, M-A-D, which can actually be directly cognate with our English word mad. So in Vedic, it had this root mad had the meaning of kind of a exuberant joy, and with this prefix pra, meaning forth or forward, it's chasing something with exuberant joy, kind of getting carried away. Our English expression "carried away" does catch it. You're no longer standing firm in the sense of mindfulness and right and wrong, and mindfully doing what you should do. You get carried away. But equally, you can be carried away because you're chasing after something that you like. But by the same token, you can get this pamada. You get carried away with dislike, aversion, hatred. So pamada can work both ways. So this mad here suggests the balance of the mind being disturbed. You're not being in full control of what you are doing. This exuberant rush of wanting something, or equally the exuberant rush of aversion to something. Both will fall with this in this meaning of pamada. So on the verse that we're looking at, Kayena vacha chittena pamadena maya katang achayang kamame bhante bhuri panya tathagata. Simon.
Just on pamajati, is that in its verbal form? Is that a passive form, as in gone mad, as it were? Is there an active form?
You're right to suspect that it's a passive form. What it in fact is, it's because it's a class 4 verb in Sanskrit, which means that let me just call that up for you. It's a class 4 verb which has a y after the root. Let me call up the Moni Williams for you, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. In Sanskrit, MW Advanced, we're nearly there. Okay, here we are. So just switch off highlight off. So root mad, rejoice, be glad, exult, delight. And then by extension, be drunk. So this pamada is not exactly, in the Buddhist sense, not exactly being drunk, but it contains that same idea of kind of losing your balance of mind. doing something you wouldn't otherwise do. It'll sort of boil and bubble. Now, it is um, it is a class 4 verb, which means that it adds a y at the root, like pad, not padati, but padyati or padyate in Sanskrit. And it's the j which becomes the double j in Pali. So, in fact, in Sanskrit, you have it's one of these verbs that also lengthens its a in the root, slightly irregular in that way. So, present tense, madhyati, which accounts for the majjati rather than madati in Pali.
Also like vidyati and buddhyati and verbs like that.
That is a genuine passive.
What, vidyati?
Yes.
Oh,
It is vidyati means it exists, doesn't it? That one.
I don't know. I've got it down as a class 4 here.
Have you? I have it down as a class 1, a class 2 rather, passive. Though in fact, I should mention that with these, the classes of verbs, one to 10, the passive form of the verb is outside the regime of classes anyway. And so we have the root vid, and in Sanskrit, vidyate as a passive means it is known or it is seen, and by extension, it exists. Very commonly found in the negative form, navidyati, il n'y a pas, it doesn't exist.
Sorry, with the H, vijhati. Is that to pierce or to penetrate?
Oh, yes, that is to pierce or to penetrate with an A. That is, yeah, so that's from the root vid. There's alternative root vyad as well.
Not vindati.
So the vid, this piercing, okay. Vid, yeah, it's, so that from vijhati, it's the weak form of vyad. So vid and vyad are essentially the same root. Vyad. So vidyati, see where I'm highlighting there. We're looking, by the way, at Mary Williams Sanskrit here. So vidyati, it's a class 4, which just means that it adds a y between the root and the vidyati, and that accounts for the vijhati. So it cannot, sometimes you cannot distinguish in form, even in Sanskrit. You can have a form of the verb, and you don't know whether it's a class 4 atmanepada or it's a passive form of the verb, like tapyate, for example. Is that a class 4 atmanepada, or is it a passive?
I was just hoping that this one would be like pamajati might be a passive, because it would excuse me from some of my youthful excesses if it's something that was done to me.
Yeah, I'm afraid we don't let you off as easily as that. I don't know what came over me, your worships. Yeah, I didn't really do it. Yeah, it's I see your point, but I'm afraid there is no linguistic route to salvation just on this exact point, Simon. I'm afraid on this one you have to just stand up and take responsibility for your acts. So the verb in this sentence, and all this in verses, it's a regular grammatical sentence. Achayang kamame bhante bhuri panya tathagata. So kamame, it's the root ksham in Sanskrit, which is kam in Pali. It's the same one that we get, the same word from which we get in Sanskrit kshanti, and in Pali Kanti, which is frequently translated as patience. Let me just, so root ksham, regular class 1 verb, kshamati, in Pali, kamati, Sanskrit and Pali respectively. It's often translated as patience, but patience has got various meanings in England. I mean, you can, in English, you can wait patiently in a queue, or you can, in older English, endure with patience sufferings that are inflicted on you. So although patience, so in which I say the verbal nouns are kshanti in Sanskrit and kanti in Pali. So patience is probably too wide a translation. It's like a patient endurance of pain that is inflicted on you. There's that non-reactive acceptance of evil that is done to you. And for example, those of you who've been with me in the Sanskrit group, we've been doing Shanti Deva's Bodhicharya Avatara, and chapter 7 is the chapter on kshanti, that is patient endurance of what is done to you. And the poetic analogy is given about about enduring what is done to you in the same way that the earth endures whatever is thrown upon it. So should we ideally endure patiently, non-reactively, what is done to us. Easier said than done, I think, but that's just a little personal aside. And the kama here is just the regular imperative form. So kama me bhante. Be patient with me, let it go. Don't act with reactivity. So patiently endure, bhante. Now here, in the previous verses, we discussed the anomaly of the final uttama or uttamang when I want to see uttamo. Here we see buripanya tathagata. I'll be right back with you, Simon. Buripanya tathagata, vocative form, correct and expected, because the form of the verb used here is kama, the imperative form. So you're speaking directly to the bhante, you, bhante, imperative, kamame, forgive me, then vocative, buripanya tathagata, which is exactly as I would expect to see. So I'll come back to the detail, but Simon first.
That's pretty much the point I was going to make in terms of the sense of it, that it's like further to Marion's point about addressing people, that in the case of an offering, we're using the polite third person. In the case of a confession, we're using a much more direct second person. You wouldn't normally do that to a superior. You can say bhavatu to the Buddha, but you wouldn't say bhavahi or bhava. So it's quite almost an intimate thing, isn't it, to say that you have done wrong in this sense.
A German comment. I hadn't thought of it in that way, but yes, I certainly take your point. I haven't.
The case, it's would the Blessed One consent when people are inviting the Buddha for food, or teach me the Dhamma, desetu Dhamma.
May he teach, may the Blessed One teach, desetu Dhammang. Yes, yeah.
This is extremely direct.
Is extremely direct. There's no direct supplication. Look, I'm in trouble. I've done wrong. Please, oh Blessed One, now forgive me what I've done. It's a good point there. So, and it does also explain correctly why this vocative form, anya, tathagata, both of these are just regular vocative forms. So, kamane bhante, forgive me, Bhante, Bhuripanya Tathagata. Now, we all know the word panya with a long a, meaning wisdom. I think most of you know, but I'll just make absolutely sure. Oops. So let's look at this panya. Feminine noun ending in a long a equals wisdom. That's a word that we all know. What is happening in this verse, Bhuripanya, it's now the second member of a compounded adjective. Bhuri, meaning abundant. So if you put these two words together, into a compound adjective, the panya ceases to be a feminine noun ending in a long a, and instead now becomes just like any other adjective, or it ends the same way as any other adjective of the class of nouns and adjectives ending in a short a. So the nominative form would be Bhuripanyo, one who is full of wisdom. This is a regular feature, so be alert to it. Panya, wisdom, Bhuripanya, of abundant wisdom. That's a compound adjective, possessing abundant wisdom. It's now changed over to being an adjective and behaves like any other adjective ending in a short a. So nominative form, a male full of wisdom would be Bhuripanyo. A female full of wisdom, now that would be Bhuripanya, not because the original word is panya, because we're now making a feminine form of the adjective, masculine in o, feminine in a, Bhuripanya. The form that we see it here is the vocative form, O thou who art full, O full of wisdom, one, O one who art full of wisdom. And that's the standard vocative ending, Bhuripanya. And I have just noticed that in the sheet that it's funny, on my printed sheet, it missed the two. Okay, that was a printing error. All is well. So, Bhuripanya Tathagata. So Kamame Bhante. So, Bhante, Bhuripanya, Tathagata are all three consecutive vocative forms. Now, Chayang. A Chayang. Has anyone worked out a Chayang and what it means, why it means what it means? Simon.
It means kind of it's a really interesting one. I thought a lot about this. It means it's ati eti or ati e.
It is, yes, it is exactly that.
Going beyond, but this is, I mean, to return to the earlier bit, this is actually really nice because unlike stuff like atikkamati, when we step beyond, we make a deal.
Yeah.
Acchaya is kind of used for things slipping by or elapsing, as in, acchayena samayena. And it's the same verb that you would get as a river passing by. Something.
That's right.
So this is like stuff slipping out rather than some vile deed that you do, isn't it?
Actually, it is. It could be interpreted in either of those two ways, as I will explain. So the the achaya of time just means the passing by of time, as I will explain here. It's the so we've got the our root e to go, and it makes a verbal noun in aya, as in sam I samaya, sam udi samudaya, and so the I aya. The verbal prefix ati means, in a physical sense, it just means over or beyond. And if you step over an obstacle, ati kamati, you kamati step ati over something. Also, it can mean excessive. Just as in English we can use the word over in a physical sense. You step over an obstacle, or you can overdo something. So it has both of those meanings in Sanskrit and Pali as well. So the ati plus aya means literally going over or going beyond. So in Sanskrit, ati aya becomes atyaya. Sorry. Oh, come on, what's it doing? So atyaya, and by regular phonetic mutation, the atyaya of Sanskrit becomes achaya in Pali. So it can mean the going by, as in times of the effluxion of time, the passing of time. It can also, remember, mean a transgression. The word transgress, trans over or across, and gress meaning step. So a transgression, you are stepping over, as in you're crossing a line that you shouldn't cross. So I think that you could treat it. I'll be right back with you, Simon. I think you can treat it in either of these two ways. Either as something you've let slip, or that might be, just a little bit too passive here. I tend to the view, I can't absolutely claim I'm right. I tend to the view here that, we're taking a bit more responsibility. You've crossed the line, you've stepped over a line, you've done something you shouldn't have done, a transgression, and overstepping a mark. Simon, are you going to try and shoot me down?
Yeah, I think I'll have a go.
Okay.
I agree. Yeah, we should take responsibility, and that's what we're doing. But this is a gentler form. I mean, when you talk about transgression, the gressus or whatever it is literally tikkama, kramati. And that's much more active. When you get these accounts of monks working their way through the jhanas and the formless realms, that's atikkamo. That's like hard work. That's something that's deliberately done. Which
That, that's right. I mean, for example, in the description of going through the jhanas in the Digha Nikaya, for example, from one jhana, Samatikama, having stepped beyond that one, then Dutyam Jhanam Upasampajja Viharati, having attained the second jhana, he dwells. That is correct. Yes.
I mean, that's more like transgression, isn't it? Literal translation of transgression, as opposed to the Achayam, because it's involving stepping, whereas this is
Yes.
just something going. I mean, yeah, we take responsibility, but it is gentler, I think, broader.
Something that has slipped by. It is a duty that I failed to fulfill. It passed me by.
Just
It's,
just my
just
kind of blanked out without me thinking about it, without me exercising um, kind of diligence about it.
um, okay. If you looked at that second line beginning Achayam on its own, um, there would be a certain argument. So as I've in the past often had to say to clients, look, I can't say that we're going to win this argument, but at least I won't feel embarrassed running it in court. Can't guarantee we'll win, but it's a respectable argument, which is what I could say if we were just looking at the second line on its own. But the first line is explicitly pamadena. So it's this achayam, this letting go or transgression, whichever we translate it. So kamame, the grammar of the sentence, kamame, forgive me, Bhante, the achayam, however we translate that, so maya katang, by me done, so the achayam, done by me, done how? Pamadena, by pamada, by getting carried away. Okay, so okay, I mean, you could still be right, but you're recognizing two things: that you're guilty of a pamada, and by virtue of that pamada, you have been guilty, or rather, it wasn't my fault you're on, but it just the achaya happened.
Yeah, I'll buy that, but I think it's still, in terms of transgression, that's more to do with the kramati, isn't it? Atikama.
The transgression, of course, in its ancient meaning in Latin, it just means stepping over something, stepping from one place to another. And I think it's just later on it came to mean it's its meaning of you have transgressed, crossed a red line, not an ordinary line, but a red line. But yeah, I mean, I take your point. I think we have to remain open to both interpretations here.
James?
Yeah, Sarah.
Is me one of those different nouns that declines differently? Because we've got may and then maya. Maya.
Yes.
So is that a standard form of declension of a noun we haven't learnt yet?
Is it or a pronoun we haven't learned? Well, there's aham, same as that, meaning I, and then it's got the accusative form, which in Sanskrit is mam, and then Pali of the shortened mum. The instrumental form, which we see here, maya, identical in Sanskrit and Pali, maya, by me, pamadena maya katang, through pamada, by me done. So yes, it does fully decline. It also has a short form, me, which can be used for the accusative and the genitive and the instrumental, actually. It's just a short form. It's only in enclitic. It comes at the end of another word. So yes, basically it is one of these fully declined pronouns. So here we've got me is the short form, where coincidentally looks exactly like and means exactly the same as the English word me. And indeed, they are of the same origin. So our English word me and the me that we see there are etymologically and historically the same word. Maya is the instrumental. So kamame, forgive me. Achayam, the achaya, either letting slip or transgression. Katang, done. Maya, by me. Pamadena, through pamada. Is that clear? So there's
yeah, thank you.
There's lots of exciting new learning of declensions for you to do, Sarah. The future is full of new learning of word endings for you. There will be no shortage.
Splendid.
So we've got now 3 words here, all of them in the instrumental. Gayena, from the word we all know, Gaya meaning a body. Vacha, which is a consonantal stem, and as I was just explaining in the first hour, it makes its instrumental just for the long hour. So vacha, by speech, and chittena, by chitta, by mind. So the achayang that I have done through pamada by body, speech, and mind. The meaning of the instrumentals is slightly different here in both. So it's something that is done by the body, kayena, vacha, by speech, chittena, by the mind. So that's actually done by one of those three instrumentalities that we have, body, speech, and mind. The instrumental pamadena here is more an instrumental of cause through, done by body, speech, and mind through pamada or by reason of pamada. So I fell into pamada, and by the pamadena, by reason of falling into pamada, I have done this achayam, transgression, let us say for the moment, kayena vacha chittena, by body, by speech, by mind. Simon.
It's not in your notes there, but in the chanting book, there's a full stop at the end of the first line after katang, which doesn't seem to make any sense because it should be katang achayang.
Ignore punctuation. Sorry to have to say this, but okay, I'm going to stand at the barricade here. Ignore the punctuation in our chanting book, especially. Okay, if you want to put a full stop at the very end of the chant in the chanting book, fine. Can't see any objection to that. But you do find maybe has slipped by an achaya, something just slipped by those who proofread our Samatha Chanting book. You do get full stops that are out of place. Correctly spotted, Simon, and you're right, because in fact the katang done, a past participial adjective, that which has been done, is an adjective qualifying achayang, which is the noun that begins the next line. I mean, no punctuation, therefore, not even a comma is appropriate at the end of that first line. So yes, Simon, correctly spotted there. And there are some editions of works in Pali where they'll just put a full stop at the end of every, say, particularly in verse, they'll put a full stop at the end of every line, even though the entire sentence will consist of two lines, and they just stick in a full stop, wrongly. And we've got to be humble in our criticisms, but there are certain cases where you just got to stand up and say, this is a mistake, it shouldn't be there. So, kayena vacha chittena pamadena maya katang achayang kamame bhante bhuri panya tathagata. By the way, this bhuri, meaning abundant or huge, literally means as vast as the earth, as wide as the earth. So bhuri panya would literally mean, somebody whose wisdom is as wide as the earth. It's from our root bhu, our dear old root bhu, to be. In fact, cognate with our English verb to be. Many of you will be familiar with the word bhumi, meaning a ground, and by extension a level or a stage. And the Tibetans use it a lot for your different kind of levels of your bhumis. The word bhuri, and also as a noun, the word bhu can mean originally being that which is, but then by extension it's come to mean just the earth, as in planet Earth, the world in which we live is the bhu. Make an adjective out of it by adding a ra or ri, but both will do. Bhuri is the most common one. Bhuri.
James, are you using your iPad?
I am. Sorry, thank you. Had you got the atyaya bit before? Okay, sorry. So it's just this. So the root bhu, to be, then bhumi, meaning a ground, but it's from the bhu, verb to be, but as a noun has come to mean earth, as in the earth on which we live, planet Earth. And make an adjective out of it, bhuri, literally earth-like, meaning as wide as planet Earth. And then in this phrase, buripanya, one whose wisdom is as wide as the earth upon which we live, is the analysis of that phrase. And do please all remember to shout at me as soon as you can when you see that I'm writing on my iPad, but I failed to display it. So let's have a recitation. Well, before we do a recitation, any comments or queries arising out of this? So I'll just recite it through slowly. Kayena vacha chittena pamadena maya katang achayang kamame bhante bhuripanya tathagata. So we come, Judith, you are next on my screen. Would you like to do a recitation for us, please?
Okay, I will try. Kayena Raja Jutena Pamadena Maya Katam Achayam Kama Mebante Buripanya Tathagata.
Okay, that was pretty good, but you just fell down a bit on the length. This pamadena.
Pamadena.
That's right. In fact, it's the same phenomenon we were looking at earlier in things like kamesu michachara often gets mispronounced by English speakers as kamesu michachara, is because of this long R preceding another long syllable, pamadena. There's this natural tendency in English speakers to shorten it. Okay, thank you, Judith. Very good. Sarah, we're round to you.
Okay. Kayena vacha chitena pamadena maya katang achayam kama me bante buri panya tathagata.
Okay, that was pretty good. Can you just do with an aspirated but bante and buri?
Bante and buri.
Okay, right. Now I want to just screen. It's actually rather difficult, naturally, for English speakers to pronounce these aspirated voiced vowels, the b, j, the. We can do a b, j, the all right, but to make them aspirated, bhuri, mante, dhamma, jhana, instead of jhana. It doesn't come naturally to us in English because we don't have that phenomenon in English, the voiced consonant aspirated. We can do it easily enough with the p, and t, but not with the voiced forms. But although it's better to try to do it, in fact, for speakers in India, the b, and the are totally different sounds. I mean, just as in English, you know, thanks and tanks are entirely different sounds for us. We don't can confuse them. So, for instance, in the same way, the are completely different sounds for the native Indian speaker than b and the. However, the Thais, bless them, can't manage it. The Thais just are even more incapable than native English speakers are of pronouncing a the. So you'll hear the Thai monks, chanting. They're chanting about the Dhamma. It comes out as the Hamma. They just can't say it. And I think as far as I can see, they've long ago given up even trying and just accept, okay, that's the way we Thais do it. But if you hear the Thais chanting, it'll come out as if Thamma was written with a th, not a dh. So the advice is in writing, easy to recognize it's got an H after it or it hasn't. Don't fret too much if you can't pronounce it well. In fact, when I started studying Hindi and Sanskrit, 60 years, more than 60 years ago now, this was the most difficult group of sounds for me to get. So don't worry if you can't do it. Just be aware that it's get it right if you can. And the Thais can't, even after all these centuries of trying. So I think they've given up. Right, who are next? Marion, would you like to have a go at chanting this one?
Well, I won't be chanting it, but I'll recite it.
Okay, fine.
I have no idea how it goes as a chant.
Chanting is entirely optional. I'm afraid
Yeah.
I'm one of the worst chanters in our Sangha, so I won't force anyone else to.
So, Kayena, Vacha, Chitena, Pamadena, Maya Katang, Achayang, Kama Me Bante, Buri, Panya Tathagata.
Okay, very nice indeed. And of course, to echo the point that Simon was making about the full stop that wrongly appears in our chanting book, they're written as two lines here because that I repeat the way it's done in verse. If this were written in normal prose, I'd put them as one line and with a short ah there, with no punctuation in between. This is how it would appear in ordinary prose. Maya katang achayang, the achaya done by me.
Yeah, I'd noticed the erroneous full stop, and I couldn't. I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
But also further to what Simon was saying, it's actions that are done in here. It suggests by inattention, doesn't it? It's not a moral lapse of action. It's done through heedlessness, which is perhaps we're asking for forgiveness of a human condition that isn't really to do with a lack of moral fibre, or maybe it is. I don't know.
And going back to my own childhood, being brought up as a Roman Catholic, you could get a very different response whether you were making your confession to a Benedictine or to a Jesuit. The Jesuits tended to take a far harder line. Benedictines a much softer line. So whether it's whether pamada is a moral lapse, it's a really interesting point, actually. And maybe we're almost confusing categories here. Is all pamada a breach of sila? Well, actually, no, it's not. I think we can talk about a breach of sila. That is a moral lapse. You kill or you steal and so on. That is a moral transgression. But pamada can almost be absent-mindedness. And as I look back over my life, I'm fairly sure that I've spent far more of my life being unmindful than mindful. Sad though it may be to make that confession. So the pamada, I would agree with you. It's not necessarily a moral transgression for that. It's not up to the same level as a breach of sila. and it's part of our human condition. In fact, it's recognized that it's part of our human condition. One of the great endeavors that we make is to increase our mindfulness. It's one of our major efforts. Mostly we don't have to make a huge effort to keep sila because we generally do not commit immoral acts knowingly. But on the other hand, we do have to make an effort to cultivate sati and apamada, because the natural condition is to fall back into it. You've made me feel much better, Marion. Thank you. Okay. Simon.
I think pamada would count as a breach of sila in the sense that the precepts are framed in terms of I will refrain from, and if you don't, then you're breaching the precept. All of the precepts are verimini, aren't they? They're giving up. So I think on this one, I mean, the point I was getting at about acchaya is a little bit like I can't remember which monk it is, but somebody in the Thai Forest Sangha says that living without sila is like driving without brakes. And so this is, you can say, well, I forgot to put my foot on the brake, but at least I didn't accelerate. You were at fault if you have pamada, but it's something that's just natural. It's your past karma coming out, isn't it? It's the your actions that you weren't heedful about. So I completely agree with Marion. It's not so dreadful. It's framed in a compassionate way.
I think that's probably right. And also, for example, over the course of I don't know, the next hour, what proportion of the time of any of us will be spent in a state of real sati and apamada, in a state of real mindfulness? Maybe there will be lapses in mindfulness, and we will just even say things internally or just do things unmindfully. That would be by apamada, but that would be that would be a pamada that doesn't have a serious consequence because it stops way short of an actual breach of sila.
But I think all breaches of sila it would be the other way around. It's a sufficient condition, isn't it? It's they would all be a form of pamada because in effect, you forgot not to kill. You forgot not to somebody. By that I'm with the judge, but that's what it says, isn't it?
I suppose you could do a deliberate evil. Say, look, I know what I'm doing. I know I shouldn't do it, but I can't stand that bloody rat coming into my, or whatever it may be, coming into my kitchen every morning. So you might kind of deliver. So that wouldn't be a pamada there, because you'd be doing it knowingly. As I said, most wrongful acts would involve an element of pamada. But
I think it would be pamada in that even if you knowingly do it, you're forgetting the precept that prevents you from doing it.
Well, hang on, because you can actually look, I know I shouldn't be doing this. I know that there is this precept. I've taken these precepts numerous times, but I'm deliberately, knowingly committing this act because I just can't stand the situation going on if I don't.
No,
So I don't think there's a forgetting, is knowingly transgressing.
I think it is. I think that's. I think you've spent more time prosecuting than defending. I think this is that you have forgotten the seriousness of the precept. You have forgotten what it means not to kill. You're allowing your anger or other defilements to overrule, which so it's slipped out.
Okay. There are 2 points there. One is that actually I can take an even-handed view here because of my time many years ago at the bar. I did roughly an equal amount of defending and prosecuting. But the other one, I forgot how serious it was. That was an act of forgetfulness, is not one I've ever dared run before a judge and jury. I don't think I doubt whether you would either, Jeremy, would you? No. You might even make matters worse. Very often to stand up and take the blame.
I forgot what the law was.
No.
Wonderful story in Charles Lamb, the writer. Growing up, he went to Christ's Hospital School, and he was punished for urinating in the master's desk, in the drawer of the master's desk.
Okay, so okay, to pause you there, that sounds like a grave enough transgression, but carry on then. What was his excuse?
Punchline is, he said he did not know it was forbidden.
He did not know it was forbidden. Okay, I very jolly soon found out though. Did not know it was forbidden. Well, very good. So
Also,
then,
also you the the fact that the supplicant that we are addressing the Buddha, and you said that probably the most important word he spoke about was being mindful, and the heart of the Buddha's teaching is about mindfulness, isn't it?
it is indeed, yeah.
Rather than the sila, which
Mm.
is sort of kind of taken for granted. If you're not paying attention to that, then you're really in trouble. But if you want to make headway, if you want to progress, if you want to move along the path, the thing that is going to help you is a mindfulness and a taking of that middle way, isn't it? And that's what the Buddha would be.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's exactly right. Because if you can take the moral continuum from the doing of evil to the enlightened state, if you draw a line across, that's kind of neutral line. So you can stand on that neutral line, just neither good nor evil, just not doing anything actually wrong. If you breach one of the rules of sila, you're going below the line into positively papaka, positively bad, wrong, sinful, evil territory. If you remain on the line, you don't make any progress. You aren't actually committing an offense, but you aren't making any progress. To make the progress, you're right. There's got to be the positive element, not only of not breaking sila, but the positive is, the development of appamada, the development of mindfulness. So the breaking of the sila is you're dipping below the neutral line, but the cultivation of mindfulness, you're carrying yourself above the neutral line. So yeah, that's a very nice way of putting it, Marianne. Mm. So we've come to 5:15. We'll resume next time round at the wish for good friends and nibbana. Before we log off, we can chant our blessing, but we will chant our blessing with careful attention to this little bit of grammar that we discussed earlier, that the verb ending in ti is an indicative statement of fact. Change that to tu, then it becomes an expression of wish, as in bhavatu sabbamangalam, rakhantu, may they protect, rakhantu sabbadevata, may all the deities protect. Okay, so shall we chant the blessing and then go our ways? Okay. Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba buddhanubhavena sada suthi bhavantu te bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba dhammanubhavena sada suthi bhavantu te Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba sanghanu bhavena sada suthi bhavantu te. Sadhu. Sadhu, sadhu. Okay, goodbye all. I'll look forward to seeing you next time round. Bye then. Bye.
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 Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.